Welcome to the Business Agility Boost. We are broadcasting from the Netherlands, so I would like to say good afternoon. But maybe you are in a totally different part of the world and just started your day with a cup of coffee joining us, or you are already celebrating your weekend. So let us know where you come from, what your name is. And please also, I'd like to invite you to add your questions into the comments so that we can address them. For the ones who are joining and do not know me yet, my name is Elise Hofmeester. I'm founder of Twingster, and it's my purpose to create spaces where everyone is able to thrive. Human-centric, purpose-driven, and value-based. We do that with our company Twingster and the Twingster Academy, but LinkedIn is also a great platform to share information, to learn together, and that's also what we are aiming for with our Business Agility Boost today. The topic of today is human experience management. And I'm very happy to be joined by Peter van Hoof, author of the Human Experience Management Manifesto. So let's invite him in the room and again, put your questions into the comments. Hi, Peter.
Good
Welcome.
day. Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. It's a Good
Okay.
Friday today, so I'm off. So brilliant time to have this interview with you. And thanks, by
Yes.
the way, for inviting me.
Yes, of course, because I was very curious and someone gave your name to me, which is a joint friend, Leonie Lubbers.
Yeah.
And was very curious about the manifesto you wrote. So we had a chat about that. And I think there's no better moment than today to speak about human experience management. But before we dive into this topic, this is the Business Agility Boost. So everyone who joins our LinkedIn Live, I ask, what does business agility mean for you?
Good question. There are multiple answers, but for me, I think it's most important to become agile in your business. Like literally, it means stripping out the invaluable work, which then makes your work, whatever you do, lean. And in that way you become agile and nimble. So I compare or use the metaphor, I think, for travel lightly. So if you travel with a lot of baggage, 3 suitcases and a backpack, it's going to be a pretty tough trip, I would say. So if I would only take one backpack, I can go wherever I'd like to go very fast, move around left to right, bottom and down. So that's what it means. That's what business agility would mean for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice metaphor because then you can travel light, you can make some speed, but also you can leave something behind if it doesn't serve you anymore. And you buy something over there when you are in a different country, right?
Exactly. So another example, we used to be with 4 HR people in my team. Now it's only me, simply because this agility way of working, makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay. And Peter, I already, of course, mentioned that you are the author of Human Experience Management Manifesto, but you are a bit more than that. Can you elaborate a bit on or explain who you are and what's your passion in life? What's keeping you busy?
Yes. So I think I'll keep it short as possible. But in any case, I started in HR 2011. And I did so after, I guess, 2 world trips that I did. And in the second one, I had a good think about, my future, my career, where do I want to move myself into, blah, blah, blah. In any case, the red thread was something with people. So I decided to do something with people. In this case, step into the HR sphere. It started with Pepsi, went on to a couple of retail companies. And then I started as a head of HR, doing HR for 15 countries with ED&F Men, which is a soft commodity trader. So
Okay.
that's one route. The other route was that I started my personal development in 2015. I've never stopped until today, and did a lot of courses, study, podcasts, articles, etc., etc. And then that's the second route. The third route is that I love digital, I love nature, and I'm intrigued by what makes people do what they do. And all of those three things came together, I guess, in 2019 when I
Mhm.
started to build this human experience management model already. And
Okay.
I did so after always questioning why we do what we do in HR. So whether that's training, performance management, doesn't matter. I always thought something is off. This is not correct.
Mhm.
And then I think that the last thing I'd like to add is when I got my divorce in 2021, I really had to look at myself and try to understand what my role was in all of that unhappiness, I guess. And that came together in this HXM model. And I started talking about it only in 2023 and leading up to this conversation I'm having with you now. So,
Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing this yeah, bit about you and behind the
yes.
scenes, how you came to writing the Human Experience Manifesto.
Yeah.
And did it then also evolve along the way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I started speaking beginning of 2024,
Mhm.
and you know I just did it. I started somewhere without knowing where I was going. I knew it was not perfect, but I had this desire and burning desire in me that said, now you're going to do something with this and present it to the world because it's needed. Yes, and then a lot of things happened. So I've been on HR conferences, stages, podcasts, interviews like this, panel discussions, and you name it. Which then, to your question, has been able for me. I was able to get more focused on where this should be going, and also create the manifesto, for example. And now I'm writing also a book on it.
Oh, that's also interesting.
Yes,
Yeah. But you already mentioned, Peter, there's no better time for it than today. Why is that the case? Because yeah, your work calls also for a radical shift away from the traditional HR
correct,
models, the frameworks, the approach.
correct.
What do you see as the core problem then? Why is it now so urgent?
Well, I mean, so the words HR, or actually the abbreviation stands for, of course, human resources, which,
Hmm.
as per definition, from where I come from, is wrong. Humans are not resources. So the bottom line to that is that you need to understand humans first to become more human in the first place.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, a radical thought-provoking shift that I think we need. The reason why now is after Corona, we were forced in doing and working in a different way. Of course, we had to work from home. That a lot of companies still do that. And I think the old traditional model was more about control, keeping everybody in the
Hmm.
box, not move around, 9 to 5 at the office, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But there's more, of course. There's ESG coming from the EU. There's diversity and inclusion and equity, and there is the generation management piece, and more specifically about Gen Z, and soon Alpha generation will come onto the labor market. They expect different things. I think at least in the Netherlands, I'm not sure about other countries, but burnout is a big problem, of course. And then I think largely the psychological safety everybody's talking about.
Hmm.
I think those three of all those things are very important, but I think there's a lot of lip service, a lot of buzzwords going on in HR. We all talk about it, but it's hard to do something about it. And I think I would like to think at least that the human experience management tackles all of those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to come back to what you said in the beginning, we now call yeah, the department, etc., resources, human resource management. There is already going on a discussion for ages about the name of HR. So why do you think that if we change that to human experience management, that it now will change?
The name you mean, or
Yeah, we have already discussions about should we not change the name, because then maybe we also start to act in a different way. But yeah,
yeah.
human experience management is a different a replacement for human resources, probably. So curious how you see that.
No, I think changing names, people, and culture, and all of those good things, happiness. I think chief happiness officer and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, it's the same name. It's a different name for the same thing, in my opinion. And I think you can change those titles, but if the people who are in those titles, and that's also a starting point, I think, for HR people that are on this call or will listen to this interview later, is let me give you examples. I joined Ace and Tate in an interim role, which is a startup scale up for glasses, right? So
Yeah.
I did an interim role, maternity leave, and I spoke to 9 people in the team, including recruitment. It doesn't really matter. Everybody were good workers, hard workers, but only one gave me an answer when I asked, why are you in HR? And she said, it gives me goosebumps now. I have a heart for people. I want, from the inside, I want the best for the employees. And I said, that's great. And please promise me that you'll never let go of that promise, because that's what makes the clock tick, right?
Yeah.
So I lost a bit of your question now. In any case, it starts with somebody, why you're in HR in the first place yourself, and then it goes from there.
Yeah, and it's also it's not about replacing the name. That doesn't help to change anything in our behavior, but it's also really about how you feel about what it should be. And then it's not in the name of HR or people and culture or human experience management. And I think the great example you gave had to really speak from the heart, and how you asked it in your organization.
Yeah,
but what is then one thing is, yes, people are the foundation of our organizations, but in the Human Experience Manifesto, you also speak about AI.
Yes.
And you also see AI as a foundation of human experience management.
Correct.
How can we view that? Can you explain how you view that, what your vision is about it?
Yeah, so in the beginning, and it was for me a catalyst to start talking what I'm talking about. I saw AI upcoming, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, and I thought, oh, this is quite scary, because it will replace jobs and make people unemployed, and it's gonna. That was ultimately my biggest moment of that I was scared in the sense of I thought, with those tools, AI would know more about us as human beings than we know about ourselves. So that was my starting point when I started talking about this. Then gradually, and you asked me before, that this changed a bit, because I do speak to quite a lot of vendors with tools that I think are very sophisticated in the AI sphere, and then more predominantly, of course, HR. And then I changed my mind a bit, because I saw that what AI can do is, and that's the bottom line also in my model, is acting like a mirror, if you will, to assess people in a way that they've probably never assessed themselves before. We maybe talk about Pollenize later, but that's an Australian startup which they come from the gaming world. And they have a really nice tool that actually mirrors you in terms of going through gamification, and so games, simulations, and it triggers people doing and playing the games, but it ultimately gives you an overview of empathy, strategical thinking, critical thinking, and loads more. I don't even know how many they have, but that gives you that deep insight into who you are as a person, and there's more, of course. And therefore, I think if you take that as a starting point, for example, for learning and development, and I'm going to go and drill down one layer down now.
Yeah.
For example, if I think that everybody in a company need to go through the gamification platform of Polynize, for example. Then you get a picture of who's having what traits and what ways of working, also cognitive skills and stuff in there, soft skills. But if you've done that, and on the flip side of the employees, of course, your organization, if you think that strategical thinking, for example, is something everybody needs, or maybe senior management needs, and you found out that, for example, the finance CFO is not so good at strategical thinking, that would be directly a starting point to improve wherever that person is sitting in terms of level, to improve that piece of strategical thinking for him or her to grow into that side of things, if that's necessary for the role.
Yeah.
And on the other side, there's another tool called Disperse. They measure what competencies are needed from an organizational point of view, and whether they have it or not. So if you then connect, also via AI, by the way, if you connect those competencies and you map them, and you have on the other side, the employee side, the assessment of who they are as a person, and there's no matter of good or bad in this, by the way. But then you can match. Do we have the right persons on board or not? And what should we do to get people up where they want to be or need to be in order to grow, but also connected to the competencies we need to keep existing and get future-proof in this very fast-changing world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what you mentioned is that then everyone goes through that gamification process, but it can also be scary for people, right? Because it becomes very visible where you have to develop what you lack. So on the one hand, it's very good to get those insights, but on the other hand, it can also be scary. So what is then necessary for organizations to do before you start with this?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because I've tried to do this in my own company, and what made it difficult is the hesitance and also kind of resistance for people to get analyzed, if you will, because yes, it is scary. I think my story is I think quite innovative, and still at early days. I think gradually it will become a bit normal, but that's not an answer to your question. I think what's needed is to create awareness. It's drip feeding, so not like a liter of water at once, but just little drops of things that you need to, I guess, nudge people in. That could be with senior management, could be with the board, could also be one-on-one with colleagues when they have a problem, or when they're sick or have illness or in burnout, that sort of stuff. I sometimes do that. And the other thing is that I think the importance of diversity and inclusion and equity and ESG, you can easily connect this topic as something new to, for example, ESG, to talk about the S, because that's about HR. And then, for example, part of the S is, because I'm working with it too, is work-life balance, so how does that work? And HXM could be an answer to all of those things. The other thing is, and that's probably most interesting, is that you should have leaders lead by example. And I always say, if you don't know what you don't know, you can't really do anything about it, because you're trying to do something maybe that you don't know how it works. But my point is, it starts with everybody themselves. I think I mentioned that before. Also, leaders should start to do the assessment and start showing who they are without their hierarchy, without their mask on of being a leader, and I don't know, wanting to be dominant, letting go of ego, and that sort of stuff. Because that's how it works, unfortunately. It will take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will come back to the leadership part because I'm
Yes.
very curious also to hear from you how you've done that yourself and what is then necessary. But I first want to go back to you said, okay, if then everyone goes through such a program or gamification and we have those insights, could it then also be the case that we can more easily switch from working in functions and starting to shift to, for instance, roles? What does it mean for creating new teams, for instance?
Yeah. So there's no titles and roles,
Hmm.
because everybody has their own. Yeah, I call it profile.
Hmm.
I can share a bit more if you want to understand where this will go into the future, but maybe that's for now too far fetched. But in any case, you'll have a skills mapping, and there will be skills gaps
Yep.
between where you want to go as a company, or department, or as a person, really.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the question is, what was your question again? Because I lost it.
My question is, could if you start to use this kind of gamification in your organization and you get more insight into what the skills are of the people in your organization, that you can shift more easily
Yes.
from working in functions. Maybe you keep your function. That's not the what I aim for, but that you can easily switch to, okay, what kind of roles do we need, for instance, in a team? What
Yeah.
skills do we need so that it can help also to form teams? For instance, if you start a transformation or a change project and you are looking for people in the team, can it then also help to find people in the organization who are suitable for this job?
Yes. That totally. So thanks for pointing that out again. So again, titles and roles will go because people will be working where they fit best at that moment in time.
Yeah.
People could have those traits already, and then move around to, you go from sales to marketing, from R&D to HR, and back to finance, for
Yes.
example,
Yeah.
or you work in projects. Um, Let me give you an example. So there's also a tool called Pymetrics.
Yeah.
It's part of Harvard. You maybe know it. Harvard is the machine learning system for CVs, reading
Yeah.
CV.
Yeah.
And they had a client, and it was a call center. So they needed 10 new people, and those people needed to be as close as possible as what they defined as their high potentials. So Pymetrics came in, they measured in a similar way that Polynize does, they measured these high potentials. And the funny thing was that what this call center was looking for and thought were high potentials, or what the traits are of high potentials, these 10 high potentials that they identified didn't even have those traits or competencies. So the point
Hmm.
here is you're looking for 10 high potentials that are wrongly defined. So you need different skills apparently to become a high
Hmm.
potential. So you need to look for other people.
Yeah.
If you want to hire those people at the gate, you need to do the assessment too, of course, and then you can hire those people for whatever role you want. So you need to do this with everybody, and then find out who's who and where do you need the people. And if you lack certain competencies or skills, you either again develop those, or you get them from the outside. In
Hmm.
the end, and I compare it to an ant colony. An ant colony has three roles. Basically, it's a queen, it's a worker, and there's
Yeah.
males. They all know what they need to do, and they all know, if something wrong, they will attack. If something is broken in their nest, they will fix it. And it's kind of like a self-organization method, I guess. And
Yeah.
I think if you map out everybody in a company, and basically this is very simple for example, of course, with the ants, but then you can easily put people together, and because it makes sense to put them together for whatever aim you have, and then you let them self-organize.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I always call I call it an umbrella. So you need to have an umbrella of a framework of where we want to go, and then there's room under the umbrella to move around with
Yeah.
that self-organizing organism like ants,
Mhm.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, because I really love that example of the ants, and I wrote it down for myself also when I first read your manifesto, because you speak also about bringing nature and
Yes,
people closer together. And we can learn a lot from nature, right? The ecosystems they have created and how they are able to continue when they get disturbed. So there is a very clear short video, Emergence, and that's about the ant colony. And if there's an ant eater is coming and destroying the colony, then they are able to change roles. They do that themselves. It's self-organization.
yes.
It's really a great example, and we will add the link to the video later on here in the comments. But that's really what you also explained. It's very great to learn from that as an organization ourselves.
It's a different topic, of course, but nature by itself, we are part of nature, right? So
Yeah.
we should go back to nature, I think, because it's so important. And then one other thing I'd like to say, but this is just food for thought, is the wolf problem we have in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So I would like to say that people should remember that we are guests in nature, not not other way around. So we should respect and let it be the way it's supposed to be, and not try to intervene because we think we are bigger or greater than nature, because that's not true.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was a side topic.
Yeah, but it's also an example for what happens in organizations. Some people in organizations think they are better than someone else. So, and it's the question if that is the case.
That's never the case.
No. So, thank you for the example, Peter. You already touched on to make this happen, human experience management in the organization, and also introducing, for instance, toolings, AI, agents, robots, whatever we can work with. As a person, we always need to give input if we try to work with AI, but it also needs psychological safety. And to create psychological safety, that means also a lot from leaders. Can you elaborate a bit on that, how you do that in your organization or what you see in other organizations? Maybe you have some examples how you can do that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and also very difficult, because I think what makes it difficult is that people in general don't know what it means to be a human being. So you need first to accepting that as a fact, because if you don't accept that, it's going to be pretty damn hard to convince, and that's something you don't want to do, is convince somebody that it starts with you, as whether it's a leader or employee, it doesn't really matter. The thing is that what I tend to do is, for example, maybe not a nice example, but we used to have somebody in burnout, which of course sat at my desk, because simple falls under HR. But when working with, because I reported to the managing director, and I was also, of course, reporting into him about this matter, but also with the direct line manager of this specific person. Goes to the company doctor, you talk about mediation, we did everything. But the thing is that what I then tend to do is to explain to the line manager, but also our MD, why this person is in burnout and what happened there. And you go 1 or 2 or 3 layers down from what the company doctors write down in their feedback document. because this particular person, he was bullied at a young age at school. He had tough luck in competing with his brothers and sisters who were more successful than him. That made him what other people might call an insecure overachiever. So somebody who's really dedicated, loyal, has his own mind, and that very controllable as well. Yeah, and then when we said, because he was part of a project team, we said, you should now stop, and you're going too fast. You're manipulating people. You're lying basically, and that needs to stop now. And it went on from there. And then we had a discussion, and ultimately said, you need to go now, because we've tried to stop you. And that was basically the tipping point for him to go into the burnout. But when he was getting out of the burnout, I actually put him with a outplacement bureau that goes a bit further than just outplacing him into another role, and went 2 or 3 layers down into his past and his youth and blah blah blah. Yeah. My point of all of this is, when you speak about this to senior people, depends a bit on the level and details, but then what happens is, and that's also what you sometimes call when presenting, or what artists are very good at, or comedians, is get neural coupling. So people, they relate to what you say about this particular person, and then they start talking about their own youth, their own problems, their own traumas, and blah blah blah. And I think that's important when you want people to understand what human experience management means, because ultimately it's trying to understand who you are and why you do what you do, and what has been the influences during life that made you who you are. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about DNA, and that was the thing I just referred to in terms of futuristic stuff. But in any case, then people start thinking, and the more you do it within the company, it's like how do you say that? An oil stain that goes further and further, like a ripple effect.
Yeah. And do you think, Peter, that there's space for that, a room for that in the organizations?
Yes, you should. And that's why I think it's important. If this resonates with people on the call, or who listen to this later, if this resonates, you should just try and see how it works. Because what you get is really valuable relationship. I had a person, she left last week. She gave me a call and she said, not to pat myself on the back, but because of me working like this, she said, I'm really happy to have worked with you. The things you've said, very empathetic, you understand people, and you try to help us further. And those kind of feedback moments for me are so invaluable, like big time, because that's when I know that what I'm doing, in the sense of how I want to have people think or feel good, and going back to the psychological safety piece, in the end, there's no good or bad. Everybody is who they are, and that's fine. Therefore, I also struggle a bit with diversity and inclusion, to be honest, because I don't care if you're male or female, or which religion, race, or how you identify. Yeah, we are all human beings, and that's bottom line what it is. The only thing is that, to create such a thing as psychological safety, I think it requires time, and then first some understanding of yourself, because otherwise it won't work. Yeah. And I think also we do not always take enough time for really starting to build those relationships, building trust. And trust is a small word, but it's super important to create psychological safety. Of course. It's also gone in one moment. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is, for leaders, I mean, leaders look at people usually as replaceable, So, if he leaves, I don't care. We find somebody else. That by itself is wrong thinking.
Yeah.
It should matter if someone leaves, and it should matter who that person is that's leaving, and it should matter why he or she is leaving. More importantly, if he or she is leaving because of toxic culture or bad leadership, then you know enough, right? So.
Yeah. So we have a way to go.
Yes.
Or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you see an increase already in the moment? As for instance, we talked about
Yes.
AI.
Yeah.
That probably can help us to have more time or to get some time back to work on these things and building those relationships. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's correct. So what will remain is human-to-human business, I call it. In my model, there's an HXM coach, an HXM business manager, and an HXM relationship manager.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all that exists. The rest is all AI-driven. What's important into your question, do I see changes? Yes, definitely see changes. I mean, just an example, I was at the HR Horizon Summit in Amsterdam 2023.
Yeah.
I sometimes go there and I was just gauging where we are in terms of the view of people in the first place. And I was not happy because we were still doing lip service and a lot of the things we already been talking about for years and years. So I went to the organizing person. I said, what do I need to do to come on your stage next year?
Yeah.
So I did the same thing with you. I sent him my manifesto and my script and a couple of other things. So I spoke there last November.
Yeah.
But then I saw also already some shifts in terms of other speakers and topics of the right movement. 6 months later, in March this year, I went to the HR Tech Europe conference in the Rai in Amsterdam. Which was very nice. Josh Bersin, for example, was there, and
yeah, I saw him.
Yeah, his keynote was. I could not be sitting like this, but I saw exactly again more steps into the right direction in terms of AI, the role of AI, and how it can benefit. He calls it the super worker, I think. So definitely we're going into the direction of what I'm also talking about. I think my idea is maybe a bit far-fetched still, but it's going definitely that direction. I can't. It's not undeniable.
Yeah. And I was also there with HR Tech and saw his speech. And I think it's a great way of seeing how you can take more time and spend more time for the humans in your organization and see them really as the foundation, but working as super agents or together with agents.
Plus the fact of workforce agility, right? The workforce becomes so agile if you look at the competencies and the skills and what you need. You can just again that it becomes that organism that moves around from one place to another, and that's
Okay. And you spoke also about leadership, about it all starts with self.
Yes.
How can you then connect, or is there a way to connect people from the personal purpose more with organizational purpose?
Yeah,
because they are still very performance driven. So what's your view on that, or what do you see?
Oh yeah, so that's that model of mine is split in two. So there's top and bottom. You need to find out top and bottom first and connect them before you can talk about performance and KPIs and stuff like that. I do believe in that performance comes after when this model is created. I mean, everybody knows that we need to earn money. Everybody knows that that any company needs to perform and blah blah blah. But the how do you say? Performance will come after all of this is being put in place. It's not something to drive on by itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I always wonder. I'm a big football fan, so sometimes you see in certain leagues, you see teams, they suddenly perform one year very well. So Girona in Spain was a nice example. And I always wonder, so what has happened there? I mean, mediocre players, some good players, but something happens there that it becomes like an ecosystem that is just functioning. And I don't know why. Nottingham Forest now in the UK, for example, is a nice example too. Third at the top of the board. But what my question is, so the point is, what happens there? And I think it's the ideal mix of people and coach that can transform even the mediocre players in something bigger than themselves. And then the performance is, in this case, they are top of the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's something difficult to grasp, but there's a mix of things. If you can create that mix of things, I call it cultology. So the art of creating culture, because there's something around culture there. And again, it's like a micro environment, if you will. So compared to nature again, that makes performance happen by itself, and not because, for example, Manchester City buys for 200 million 3 players and then thinks, are we going to be winning the Champions League now? It doesn't work like that.
No, and we all know that if you change the team, they need to start building trust again amongst each other. And there was also recently a new research which showed that although maybe some people in the team are have less experience or perform a bit on a different level, then they grow also through the people who have different skills and they learn from each other. So there you see that the people learn from each other in multidisciplinary teams. And also, if there is trust in the team, then you also start to perform better. I've experienced that myself in the transformation team. We could read and talk with each other without talking. We knew what we need to do.
Exactly.
We only had to look in the eyes of the other to see, hey, how are you doing today? I see something in your face or in your eyes, and that was amazing.
Yes.
And we had, there was a great performance. But we also then, if someone needed time to do something else, then that was also fine. We all said, okay, go home. We take care of everything we need to do today.
That's a prime example, a really nice example of how it can work.
Yeah, it can work.
The tricky thing is that now, and maybe in your example not, I don't know, but it happens by coincidence. And I would like to see it not happening by coincidence.
No. That would be very nice.
Yes. You can always have people put together that are a ideal mix. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But there you need to have the conditions to really grow, and that people also feel safe to do that. So it's okay that you make a failure and so on. And there is a question from, it was just on screen. Is there a challenge in seeking satisfying human experience?
Is there a challenge in
seeking satisfying human experience?
Well, I'm not sure whether I understand the question.
Okay, is there a challenge in seeking satisfying human experience? Maybe, Sanjay, maybe you can elaborate a bit on it more.
What do you mean by satisfying? To make it work, or?
And if so, can it be ever achieved? I think so, but then we do an assumption. So maybe Sanjay, maybe you can elaborate a bit more on that so that we can come back to it. Because we are also almost at the end of the session. But I have a question to you. Because you are very passionate about this.
Yes.
And I also believe really in the human experience and creating human experience, because yeah, people are the foundation of our organizations. But if there are now HR professionals, leaders listening today, doesn't have to be HR, right? Because the humans, we work together in organizations, so it's for everyone. What could then be one step to start with? What would you like to say to them?
Well, first of all, you need to have curiosity into what humans are, basically. So you need to find out what that means, also for yourself. People in HR should question and also answer to themselves why they are in HR. So what are they trying to achieve? Is it just a role, or is it something you got into by coincidence, or did not know what else to study than HR, and then you started your career ladder, blah blah blah. Doesn't really matter. So my question, or the point would be that people should ask themselves the questions why they are in HR. I also think that they should look into themselves, but also what makes them tick, and at the same time try to understand. And that's some kind of compassion that you have for others, is that you try to understand that others do what they do because of some reasons. You should have compassion for that, and not point fingers, blame, or get biased, or judging people. So that also goes for leaders. I think leading by example, you need to create awareness. And I think what's important there also is for HR people to let go of those buzzwords, but from an honest point of view, try to become the employer of the future employer, I guess. Those are a couple of things that I think are very necessary to think about, and then take it as a starting point.
Yeah.
Another thing is, and then it might get a bit too psychological, but you can start for yourself just to examine why you do what you do, in terms of professional and private life. And that's, I think, enough for now, because those are big questions. And I think if you start with that, it will go from there, just as I started in 2015. And 9 years or 10 years further now down the line.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about the stuff we are talking about. Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then now I understand the question of Sanjay, because we are human. Our new human nature is that we cannot be satisfied optimally. So can we achieve the optimal human experience if we are all different?
Yes, that's interesting point, Sanjay. So, like in life, everything is a contradiction. So there's always left and right, A and B, black and white. So it's always a contradiction. So this is basically what you're saying is a contradiction of human experience management. Is it ever achievable? Yes, it is. But it differs per person how fast this goes and how achievable it is. And I also, and this is the contradictionary to me saying yes. If you do it correctly, and now it becomes maybe a bit more philosophical, it's never finished. It's never finished. So, there are people that say they are finished. I'm not going to go into that topic, but in essence, it's never finished, because there's always something to learn. It's always something to get better at. It's always something that you need to be curious about. It's always something in the future that needs critical thinking. So it's never finished. The point is that let's take presenting as an example. I was big time scared in my first role at Pepsi. I had to do a presentation, 200 people. I thought I was scribbling down all the things that I wanted to say. Now, because that's another topic, but getting out of my comfort zone and trying to understand why I was so scared to be in front of people, that's not an issue anymore. So my point is, issues will come, issues will go, but it will depend on how you'll deal with the issues you have and what next steps are there. Therefore, it never ends.
And then probably also, Peter, how you are supported in that.
Yes.
What help you get, and then we
Yes.
come back also to the people in your environment.
Exactly.
What kind of environment is there to help you further grow?
Yes.
Probably because
Yes.
then if you did not get help, then probably you are still nervous. But yeah.
Well, you can't do it by yourself. Simple as that. You need other
Yeah.
people. And in HXM, that's exactly what the HXM coach does. So that person will help you go further.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Okay, Peter, I think we can elaborate on it for hours.
I know. Yes.
Maybe we should do that about the roles furthermore
Yes,
in another
of course.
session.
Sure.
But for now, where can people follow your work, or do you have that somewhere represented?
Yeah, so I have a website which is called tology.nl.
Yeah.
And of course, on LinkedIn, like you said, is a nice platform for stuff like this. So I do some posts now and then on the topic. And my latest project is the book that I'm working on together with ChatGPT, by the way. So he's helping me big time on it. But in any case, that I will share that once finished, and then people can read about it a bit more with a couple of layers down from the conversation we are having today.
And what is the date you are aiming for to launch your book?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So I just start and then see where the process will take me. Trust the process. I always say. And if it's finished, it's finished. It's probably not going to be perfect, but I don't care. But I have the draft is ready. I have people reviewing it now.
Okay.
So yeah, I could say 3 months from now, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Now then we will follow you on LinkedIn and to see when it will be launched. Okay. Thank you, Peter, for your openness, for your vision sharing around human experience management. And I think we have some work to do in organizations.
We have.
But it always starts with ourselves. So
Exactly.
if we don't change, then nothing will change, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. If there are still questions popping up, because I know how it goes when you walk out the door and then you think, this is one question I would have loved to ask. Don't hesitate, reach out to Peter online on LinkedIn, to me online on LinkedIn, or underneath the replay, because you can always watch back and it stays live on LinkedIn. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. Thanks again, Peter, for being here,
Thank you, Alice.
sharing your story.
All right.
Bye-bye.